Have you ever noticed that discarded AA batteries can be repurposed in many ways? In this video I'll show you 2 tips for using them in different ways. In the first tip, I'll make a tire shine. First, I'll boil them for about 5 minutes to activate their inherent adhesion, similar to powder coating. When applied to the tires, this will make the shine less likely to wash off. If I separate all the powder from this entire batch of freshly boiled AA batteries, it would take quite a long time, so I'll use one battery as a sample first to make the process easier to follow step by step. As for the inner core rod of this AA battery, I'll save it for the second tip. For the first method, we'll only make use of the powder inside. After separating the powder inside, I'll use a spoon to grind it into a finer texture so that when the second substance is added, it can mix more easily. The second substance I'll use is WD-40. When mixed with the finely ground powder from inside the battery, the mixture becomes thicker and adheres more evenly to the surface. The idea here is that the multi-purpose oil helps to disperse the powder better, creating a deeper and more even shine on the surface after treatment. To give this mixture time to blend and work more effectively, I'll let it sit for a few minutes. While waiting, instead of just sitting around, I'll move on to the second tip. Here I have a basket full of spark plugs, one of the important components for putting together a complete homemade soldering iron. That's right, for the second tip, I'll be making a homemade soldering iron. The spark plug will serve as the tip section, helping transfer heat to the soldering tip while also acting as a connection point to the power source. But to secure this carbon core rod to the spark plug, I'll need one more small intermediary part, a connector bar and two fastening screws taken from an electrical terminal block. One end of the connector will be fixed to the threaded part of the spark plug, while the other end will hold the carbon core rod firmly in place. The electrical wire I'm using in this small project has a fairly simple structure, but it plays an important role. On the outside is an insulating plastic layer that helps reduce electrical leakage and protect the inner core, while inside are many small copper strands tightly twisted together to improve conductivity and keep the wire flexible when bent or connected between parts. In this setup, the wire will serve as the path that carries power to the soldering tip so the whole system can operate more steadily. For one end of this electrical wire, I'll secure it to the fastening screw first to create the connection point. The other end will be handled later. Once completed, electrical power will travel from the remaining end of the wire to the soldering tip so the setup can function. Next, I'll secure the electrical wire along the body of the spark plug using electrical tape to keep it in place more neatly and help the connection stay firmly positioned during assembly. Instead of holding the spark plug directly while soldering, I've prepared an alligator clip here to make handling and positioning more convenient during the process. For the remaining end of this electrical wire, I'll attach a smaller alligator clip to make connecting to the power source more convenient and flexible during use. That's not all. I'll also prepare an additional connector to link the negative terminal of the power source to the item being soldered. Its structure is quite simple, using a piece of electrical wire and two alligator clips to create a more convenient connection during use. Now let's get back to the first tip. I've prepared an old bicycle here to test how the shine mixture we made will change the tire surface. Will it make the tire look darker, shinier, or barely different at all? Let's watch closely together and find out. And as you can see, this shine mixture doesn't behave like the typical black tire shine products you often see out there. Instead of making the tire overly dark or artificially glossy, it brings the surface closer to its original tone while still keeping it noticeably cleaner and more even. From a wider view, the tire doesn't look overly coated or fake shiny. Based on my experience, I'd say this is actually a pretty interesting result worth trying, and I'd rate it around 9.5 out of 10. Now we move on to the second experiment. The small battery pack I'm using in this project consistently provides a pretty stable current. From my years of DIY experience, this kind of power source helps the system run more smoothly and reduces the risk of wire short circuits or overheating during operation. To evaluate the effectiveness of this project, we only need to observe the results through a few upcoming tests. If it can firmly join small metal parts together without damaging or destroying them, then the project can be considered successful. And as you can see in the second tip, the most important part is the carbon core rod taken from AA batteries. When used as a soldering tip, it provides fairly stable and focused heat transfer at a single point, making it easier to control small metal soldering work without affecting the surrounding area too much. Combined with the fixed structure and power supply system, the homemade soldering iron performs steadily for basic tests. To conclude both tips today, we've turned what was once considered waste into useful tools. AA batteries for a tire shine mix in the first tip, and carbon cores for a soldering tip in the second.